Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here today, my name is Audrey. Today's video is Twitter Picks My Makeup. So I asked people what their essential products were for makeup and to give me suggestions, and all of the products minus like 3 or 4 are products that were recommended specifically by Twitter. I didn't have recommendations for a eye primer or for a face primer, and I think it's just face primer. I also didn't use a blush that was recommended just because it would have been a little pricey to get it, and one of the recommendations I've already tried in the past, didn't like it. So if you're new here, I would appreciate you to like and subscribe and to stick around, and I will insert the trying all the products on, and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts.
Alright, so we're going to start with, the first thing I was recommended was chapstick. And I asked if, like, specifically the chapstick brand, but this is just anything. So I'm going to use the Trader Joe's Peppermint. So I always put on chapstick, so this isn't anything out of the ordinary. And I had an eye palette recommendation, but it was Modern Renaissance, so I'm not going to go buy a $45 palette. So I just used the Venus 3 palette today, which I would consider an essential of mine, as there's dips in nearly every single shade, so that would make sense. But the next product too I did get was the Glossier Boy Brow. However, I picked up the dupe for that, which is the e.l.f. Wow Brow in the shade Taupe. I wish I got a shade darker. I wish I got the soft brown because I prefer to have my brows look a little bit darker. I think this is a pretty good match for me if I wasn't changing the color of my brows. A little bit more. But typically I don't just use this. Some days, I mean, I feel like I have a tinted brow gel for certain days that I don't feel like wearing it. I prefer this to the one I was using, which is the Essence, because the brush is really scratchy, so I prefer that one. Or maybe I'll keep them out and tell you what I prefer. So then we're actually going to go to eyeliner. This is going to be a first impression. So I actually bought 2. Oh, no, this is the one that I've already... I bought 2. So I rebought the NYX Epic Ink Liner, but I bought it in brown. So I know how I feel about that. I'm going to try the Revlon Colorstay. This is a liquid liner. It doesn't have a little thing in it. So it's a felt tip. We're just going to try to go with it. If I'm out of frame, I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. We're going to have one of those eye days. I can't see, so I'm just going to do this off camera. So, yeah, this looks pretty good. I mean, I messed up heavily on this side, so there's a lot of coloring going on there. But it's very pigmented, and I'm not usually a felt tip person, but I'm interested to see how long this will wear for sure. Did not get a single primer recommendation, surprisingly, so I went with another one of my essentials, which is the e.l.f. Mint Melt Cooling Face Primer. I love this one. So I do have to let it sit for a few moments. Then I'm going to go in actually with a concealer first. This is a Under Eye Brightening Corrector. So this is from Becca. Looks like this, and I'm going to put it on with a brush. So I put it in with the Real Techniques concealer brush, and then I'm just going to, the lighting is not the best, but I'm going to put it in like right in here. I like to just press it in here first. I've noticed that I end up like spreading it a little bit too much. It needs to kind of be concentrated. So this is where my darkness is, and so I will focus it around here. Not only does it brighten the area, but with the concealer that we're going to put on, if you have a more drying concealer, it helps hydrate the under eyes. So foundation wise, I love this. This is not a first impression. I'm trying this. This is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. Some of these will be first impressions, some will not. Some I've used and opened. So I got the Dewy one, And it has, this paddle confused me because I thought the paddle would be made out of, it would be like soft, but it's a plastic paddle, which I'm fine with. I don't care. Probably would prefer a squeeze too, but I don't mind the paddle. But this stuff looks great, and I apply it with a brush. So that's what I'm going to do today. Even with letting that primer dry, if you use any sort of tacky primer, it's gonna have a little pull, but you want to let it sit for a minute so that it doesn't have too much and it doesn't start looking streaky. That's the key with those types of primers, by the way. If you had problems with them, I know like the one that kind of started it was the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip. I feel like the mint one is a dupe for that. Elf has another one. The Jelly Pop primer is very similar. I feel like it's a little bit more tacky even, but look how glowy this looks. Foundation is amazing, and it's like $6, I think. It's super cheap, but definitely love this. Concealer I'm going to be using, which I never tried because at this point I had stopped purchasing from Tarte, is the Tarte Shape Tape. And I have a little baby one. I wanted to get the creamy one because this is like a super dry concealer, but hopefully it'll be better. Look how tiny this little wand is. Look. So I'm just gonna put dots here. These dots are turning into swipes, and hopefully this won't be too dry on my skin. But I gotta say, I don't love this. I've tried this twice, I think. I'm not loving it, so I will let you know. I do this concealer with a sponge because I feel like it blends the best, and I'm not necessarily trying to concentrate it all the way in one area. I stopped putting, I used to put concealer on the middle of my forehead, to my eyebrows, but it started to look super dry, so I don't do that anymore. That hurt the cat. So yeah, that is what we're doing for now. I have my powders out, but I have a couple of cream products I need to try first. Okay, so the first product, this is a first impression, it just got here actually, is the Milk Makeup Bronzer. Matte bronzer. It's another mini. Look how tiny it is. So yeah, it comes like this. Milk stuff is packaged pretty much the same. I'm gonna like kind of do it that way, like I usually would. I'll do 2 sides at a time, and then I'll come back and do the rest of it. I use the Expert Face Brush from Real Techniques for cream bronzer. Okay, so off the bat, it's drier than the NYX Wonder Stick, which I use. So I can't just like lightly pat like I do with that one. You kind of have to push and swipe a little bit. So just to keep in mind, it is a little bit more dry. I feel like it blends better though. Looks less like a swipe, which is something I don't care for in a cream bronzer. It looks, theoretically it should look more natural. I'm not really worried about the foundation coming up just because I haven't put powder on my face. I do all that after if I'm using cream products. I always like to go into the jaw. Helps match the color. Now I'm going to use, this wasn't recommended. This is just because I had a couple blushes that were recommended, particularly like the Glossier Cloud Paint. Just did not want to put a Glossier order. And then I had a Fenty one that was recommended, but I didn't want to spend, you know, that's X amount of money. I spent a lot of money at also for the first half of these products. I didn't really want to spend that much money at Sephora for the next half, so this is just a Rare Beauty. It's called the Melting Cream Blush. I love it a lot. This one I use with sponge. It has really good staying power. I always will powder, so just like with powder and stuff, it has good staying power. And then I actually have one of these already, but I was suggested the Colourpop Super Shock Highlighter. This is the shade Fanny Pack. It was from the Hello Kitty collection like 3 years ago. It was discontinued, but literally you can find any like white. I'm sure the formula is all pretty much the same. I used to not like this, but then I realized just apply your cream product highlights with a brush and they look really good. So this is a white highlighter. Yeah, I mean this Sonia Kashuk brush works great on cream, which I'm kind of shocked. Like I can move my brush around, do little swirls if I want, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm losing anything. You know, ripping stuff up. So yeah, there's that. So this is the base before powder. Am I getting a shadow on my face? I don't know. I can see it looks pretty good to me. So I'm just gonna put some powder on my face. I use the number 7 powder, not recommended. Had some powders recommended, but to be honest, I don't really like most loose and pressed powders. So just stick with what I know. But I did get recommended my beloved product, which is the Too Faced Peach Perfect Mattifying Setting Powder. This is amazing if you have dry skin. So, put all that on there. Oh, I inhaled some peach particles. Just all on top of that. Perfect. Okay, so we are going to now use setting spray, which is the Urban Decay All Nighter. I have used this before. I haven't used this in a few years. I typically like a more dewy setting spray. But this is the OG. It works. I've used it. I know it works, so here's that. I'm going to use the Maybelline Sky High Mascara, which I talked about in a Get Ready With Me, actually, that the packaging feels ultra cheap, but today I'm going to use it without any primer. I feel like it looks great on top of primer. I'll be honest, it really does lift. So yeah, the brush is extremely flimsy. On the eyes, I don't mind too much. But I definitely prefer this with an eye primer. Just trying to see if you can see. Like, it definitely works. There's nothing. So I'm just gonna do the other eye. Yeah, I feel like it gets pretty good volume. I don't have a lot of eyelashes, so, you know, that's that. But I feel like it does work pretty well. I would not put this on my lower lash line, though. It probably smudges. It's pretty wet formula. I'm gonna try to apply this fast. This is the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink. This is a real red here. It's a beautiful color. It's something. So I'm just gonna kind of wipe the brush off. It's pretty thick. Yeah, it's a real red, so just gonna go in, kind of line the lips first. I really like this applicator, so I don't know if you're able to see it. I'll show you, I'm gonna have to log in, so yeah, you can't really, there it's better angle. So it's pointed, and then it has a little dip where it collects the product. That's really good so that when you're going around with the pinpoint, you don't get too much, but in the middle, then you lay it down, it'll lay down a lot of product, which is great. This is the shade Groundbreaker. I'm going to put something on top of this. I just want to get into something real quick. I'll be right back. All right, I have returned. We are going to top it off with the Colourpop Luxe Lip Gloss in Health Kick. That's just from like the Los Angeles collection or whatever that was. So this lip, I will let you know, the matte ink is kind of sticky. So just to be warned, this gloss has a huge doe foot. This is a doe foot. The ultra glossy lip is a brush, so that's just something to keep in mind. This shade particularly is pretty sheer, similar sheerness level to the Gloss Bomb. I don't necessarily know why I got this shade, but I'm just going to put it on top. These have a scent that I cannot put my finger on. Kind of sweet, kind of spicy. Maybe it's not vanilla. It's not like the Lip Smackers scent that the Fenty Gloss Bomb is, though. But I feel like it adds a nice glittery thing. I will let you know. I love the Ultra Glossy Lip. I have one here that I'm trying to use up. It is a light formula. Again, it uses a brush. They do still make this. It's going to be even more sheer. It's more lightweight. This feels more like a gloss. This kind of feels like a lip oil. This is a very thick gloss. It is thicker than the Fenty glosses. I feel like the Fenty glosses are pretty thick, but they still feel more glossy. This is going to feel more oily. Not necessarily in a bad way. It feels ultra hydrating, but just so that you have that in mind, these are very different products. I know Colourpop makes a lot of different lip formulas, but these are different. I, at the moment, would have to say, just because of how long I've used them and I'm used to it, I prefer the Ultra Glossy, but that's just my opinion on this.
So now I'm just going to run through quickly in the order that I use the products to kind of just go over what I think about each of the new products that I tried for this. So first I'm going to go over with the e.l.f. Wow Brow. It's just this little brow gel, as you saw me apply. I like this. I think I would like to get it in a darker shade. I have it in taupe, but I'd like to try it in soft brown. I think that's going to be more what I'm looking for. My brows just look a little light for me today, so I tend to prefer something a little bit different than this. The Revlon Colorstay Sharp Line Liner. I was pretty impressed by this. I'm very excited to keep using it, and I'll have to see how it wears in comparison to the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof liner. I have to say at this point I prefer that one because I just do prefer a brush tip, and in terms of felt tip, I do really like the Revolution Renaissance Flick liner, which is no longer sold at Ulta but is sold at Target. So if you can get your hands on a felt tip, I would recommend that. But if you do like felt tips, I'd also recommend this one. You know, Revlon is not a very big, I feel like, popular brand. It's a pretty big drugstore brand, but I just haven't used anything from them in a while. But this is worth getting if you're just at the drugstore or you have a coupon to Revlon, you're looking to get something. I could recommend that. It works pretty well from the one day I've used it. The Becca Under Eye Corrector. So I'm not a big correcting person. I don't use a lot of correcting concealer. It's just not what I do. But I'd say this does particularly work. I like to pair this most when I have a concealer that's a little too dry. So I would always pair this with the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define. However, it does take an additional step and it doesn't completely erase the need to use the other concealer I would find, so I'm not sure if this is something I would repurchase, although Becca's going out of business, so you probably can't. So that would be the only thing to say about this, is that if you're looking for something like this, I think it does work, but Becca's going to go out of business soon, so do you really want to find your holy grail now before they go out of business? I don't know. The Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. This is a new favorite of mine. I absolutely love this foundation. It's great. It is super affordable. It's around the price tag of the e.l.f. Foundation that everybody really likes, but it's kind of funny. I did a video last summer about how I think Wet n Wild just, it's a little overrated, but I'd have to say this is really good. So I definitely recommend this, and this is probably like my go-to foundation. I still do some days like to wear a tinted moisturizer, that tends to be something I prefer to wear, but when I want to wear a foundation, this is the one to wear. The Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is not something I'm going to repurchase after only trying it about 3 times now. I do have to pair it with something that's super hydrating. This is just too drying for me. I'm not a big fan of the Ultimate. I like the Ultimate full coverage of a concealer. However, I pretty much just wear like light to medium foundation, so it looks really odd with it. And also this is just too drying for my good. I'll use the rest of this up, but it's not going to be something that I'll repurchase. The Milk Makeup Stick, I'm interested to keep using this. Like I said, it's a little drier. I'm not quite sure how I feel about cream bronzer. I love cream blush, I love cream highlight, but I'm not sure if this is something that I particularly would like to use in the future. I mean, I've only used it once, so first impressions, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I feel like it looks more natural than the other cream bronzer I have, so I think this is pretty good. And since it's a mini, it's great that I can kind of use this and kind of establish how I feel on it at a later date. Urban Decay All Nighter, not much to say. Obviously this is the travel size too. I have already tried this setting spray. It works amazingly, makes your makeup last very well. I prefer something a little bit glowier, but I guess I look extremely glowy in the camera right now, probably because of this foundation, so I guess I don't really particularly need that, but this isn't particularly something that I would repurchase again unless it was on sale. I don't particularly buy high-end setting sprays, I just don't see it worth the money. Maybelline Sky High Mascara. I briefly mentioned this in the video while I was applying it, but I think this pairs better with a primer. It will look even better. I was actually pretty pleasantly surprised by this just based on how kind of cheapy the whole thing feels, but I think this is a pretty good concealer, pretty good mascara, so I will use it all up and kind of think if I would want to repurchase this in the future. It has like the high-end drugstore pricing, so that's the only thing that would make me be like, because I do like the Essence, and I think it's more expensive than the L'Oreal Lash Paradise, which I love as well. Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink. I agree that it stays pretty well. I've eaten multiple times and it's still on. That being said, I don't particularly like the stickiness of it. I think the stickiness is still there a few hours later. It's relatively comfortable, so I wouldn't say it's like super drying, but I'd be interested to try another shade of this. Like, I definitely probably will, and I've wanted to try this for a while. I just do think probably the best formula for a matte liquid lipstick would be the Too Faced one. This is a drugstore price point though, so stick with this if you want something to last very well. I really like the applicator. I think that's the highlight of this product. And then wrapping it up with the Colourpop Luxe Lip Gloss. I like this. It feels more like an oil. At this point, I'd have to say I still prefer the Ultra Glossy Lip. I am very interested to try another one of these, so I'm probably going to pick up one of these in maybe a lighter shade. And I think once we're not masking all the time, this will be something really nice to wear just out in public. And I think it looks very pretty. It's just like the oiliness. I would typically prefer something a little bit more lightweight, but it is pretty hydrating, so it's very comfortable. But kind of your personal preference. And I do like that it has the doe foot applicator versus the brush. I think works better for this product. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for recommending this makeup for me to wear. It's very exciting to see what other people use that maybe I've never used before, or things that I've tried before that I don't like that everybody loves. I got recommendations for NARS Orgasm Blush, which I've decluttered. I don't particularly, it's not my favorite anymore, so you know, and just keep in mind, like, everybody's skin is different and everyone has their own preferences. So these are just mine. If you recommended a product that I think that I probably won't repurchase, I don't think it works not good maybe for you. It's just I have different preferences for what I like. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you on Friday with a new video. I couldn't remember when this video was supposed to go up, but I'll see you on Friday with a new video. Bye.